An ordinary shift for a police officer.
This case came in as just another burglary.
This is an offence we have seen quite a lot of.
Can quickly take an extraordinary turn.
It's gone from 0 to 100 in no time at all.
A routine case
Just thought we were picking up someone who's maybe just a bit drunk and disorderly.
can suddenly spiral into a serious incident.
I need to arrest you on suspicion of murder.
The more I dig, the more I find. How big was this case going to get?
He has started a fire, he's done it deliberately and used some kind of fuel to get that fire going.
Sometimes the most minor crimes
It's really important that we get hold of him as quickly as possible and get him off the street.
can crack major cases.
We did have an international manhunt on our hands.
Gotcha.
Today on Big Little Crimes, a routine traffic stop in Romania
A vehicle on UK plates had been stopped at the border.
helps police 1,600 miles away in Bristol solve a local crime wave.
The initial focus was around 50 burglaries. It could well have been as many as 85.
And sparks a cross-border operation to catch the gang responsible.
At this point, we did have an international manhunt on our hands.
But first, when police in Darlington are called to reports of an intruder in a shared house,
Could this be a burglary in progress?
the night's events quickly escalate.
What started as an alleged intruder ended with us dealing with a violent offender. I'm Liam Robertson. I'm based in Darlington with Durham Constabulary. I've been a police officer now for just about 12 years. I've been in CID as a detective for 8. The great things about the job really are just that every day's different. You really don't know what you're coming into. You do have some really difficult days, but you have some really, really good days where you know that you've helped people and got them out of some tricky situations or got them justice that they otherwise wouldn't have got.
It's past midnight when police receive a panicked phone call from a woman in her 30s.
She woken up in the middle of the night to find a person in her room who had clamped a hand over her mouth and told her words to the effect of "shut up." She's managed to fight the male off and seek refuge in the bathroom where she's locked herself in. She's then phoned her flatmates and the police for help.
It's a strange report, but police have heard enough to be worried.
Could this be a burglary in progress or something a little bit more sinister?
Officers rush to the scene to speak with the victim and her flatmates.
She was very, very distressed. She was struggling to breathe properly, struggling to string sentences together.
But there's no evidence of a break-in or any sign of an intruder.
On a burglary, we would normally expect items to be stolen from the address, but on a quick search around, there didn't appear to be anything out of place. The bedroom door was locked, so the officers are really struggling to work out what could potentially have happened in this case. How did this person get into a room?
Even her flatmates are confused about what's actually happened.
They're trying to tell her that she's potentially just imagined this. They're trying to tell her that this could have just been a nightmare and something that she's made up.
But the victim is adamant it wasn't a dream.
She couldn't show us any physical injuries, but she was absolutely certain that she'd been attacked. She had this distinct feeling around her face where she'd had a hand pressed against her.
Then one of the officers spots something unusual.
The victim had a bathroom. That bathroom had shared access with another flat, and the flatmate from that address had only moved in a week before. The locks to the bathroom were engaged, and it didn't seem like anybody could have got access to the bedroom. However, the victim was adamant that somebody had been in a bedroom at the night, and she was able to give a description of the person who'd attacked her as having a beard.
Officers ask to speak to the flatmate whose room adjoins hers, but he's not there.
They didn't have any idea where this flatmate was. but apparently he'd only left the address once he found out that the police were en route.
It's getting more and more worrying.
We always have to keep an open mind around where investigations are going. At the time, we didn't know whether the flatmate was a suspect for this offence. We needed to be able to rule him in or out of the investigation, and we could only do that by being able to talk to him and identify who he was. So it was really, really important that we get that name as quickly as possible so that officers can start searching for him. The search of the address found some post in his name, which gave us the name of Michael Gallagher. It was when we searched that name through the police national computer that we realised that this person was known to the police.
Michael Gallagher has previous convictions, including for robbery. This is now much more serious.
It's really imperative that we speak to this person really quickly. So the next step for the officers was to try and find where our suspect was. We didn't have any idea where he could have been, so officers are just conducting area searches, trying to see if they could track him down.
But then, the team get a call that changes the course of the investigation. A woman has dialed 999 after being attacked as she walked along a street just a mile away.
She's been approached by a male on a bike. He's dropped the bike on the floor, pushed her up against a wall before dragging her physically across the road.
Could it be the man they're already looking for? This serious attack is now the team's priority. They're on the scene within minutes and get the victim's horrific account. She's been sexually assaulted. But one element of the crime is eerily familiar.
All that time, he's telling her to be quiet and trying to clamp a hand over her mouth in the same way that the first victim told us that she'd also been attacked.
But there's one major difference. This woman is able to describe her attacker clearly.
Critically, part of that description was that our offender had a beard, which also matched the description from the first incident.
And she's also captured a crucial bit of evidence.
She'd been so fast thinking that she'd managed to obtain some mobile phone footage of the male as he fled the scene. This mobile phone footage was taken from him behind as he fled the scene, so we didn't get the facial shot, but what we did get, which was quite key, was a clothing description. It showed him wearing a grey vest top with shorts and trainers.
This footage could be vital. The investigation shifts gear. What started as a report of an intruder is now the hunt for a violent attacker.
He really is a risk to the public.
They need to find him, and fast. In our next story, when a car is stopped on the Romanian border, officers have no idea it holds the key to solving a spate of burglaries on the other side of Europe.
I like the challenge. I like the fact that we're trying to do our best to help people. And I think that's really rewarding when you get the right result.
Detective Inspector Scott Chadwick's work for Avon and Somerset Police includes investigating burglaries across the area.
I think burglary is a big issue across the country. I think it's really important to understand the devastating effect it can have for someone to come into their safe place, and often they'll have all their really personal items ransacked through. It's just an appalling crime to be a victim of.
But one day on shift, Scott gets an unexpected phone call about a very different crime. A car has been stopped by police, who were worried it might be unroadworthy. But to say it's happened out of Scott's patch would be an understatement. This car has been stopped 1,600 miles away, in Romania.
It came completely out of the blue. A vehicle on UK plates had been stopped entering Romania at the border. It was in pretty poor state of repair, and it was full to the brim of property scattered throughout the car.
And when the officer looks inside, it seems there might be a bigger problem than they'd first thought.
It was a Romanian police officer who had made that stop, and when they'd spoken to the individual, it became clear that they'd been not only in the UK, but the car was full of what we believed might be stolen items.
It sounds like the driver could have committed a crime in the UK. But then the good news runs out. The man is now long gone.
They weren't able to keep him. However, he did give us some really important details about him and the vehicle.
They also took photographs of the suspicious items before letting him go. The Romanian police really have gone above and beyond to tip off Scott and his team.
He'd been in the Bristol area, and he actually went as far as to say that a lot of the items found in the car had come from Bristol.
Engraved and other marked items mean the officer can say with confidence a good proportion of the haul clearly comes from the southwest. But could a simple traffic stop on the other side of Europe really be the key to solving a much bigger crime right here in Somerset? Scott starts to look back at burglaries in his patch to see if there's a link.
Firstly, we had to confirm that the items in the vehicle were actually some of the items stolen from our burglary. The Romanian officers were able to take these items out the car and send us some detailed photos via email. Some photos especially focusing on items that we might be able to identify. Jewellery with engraving on or certain specifics, where we could then look at the crimes we'd suffered in the area, start contacting victims, and quite quickly, within a few days, we were able to say that yes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items, these are absolutely the right ones.
Unbelievably, the suspicious goods don't just match items taken in one burglary, but a tidal wave of linked break-ins.
There were some characteristics of these burglaries to suggest they were committed by the same offender or offenders. Part of this being they were during the daytime. So the offenders seemed to know when people were at home or away. They tended to force entry, so smash their way in. They were taking predominantly jewellery, and that's when we started to think, yeah, it's likely to be the same offenders involved in these. It's really clear that the offenders have got access to a vehicle, and then we're starting to pick up burglaries slightly further afield.
And that's when the scale of this investigation goes through the roof.
The initial focus was around 50 burglaries or so in the area. It could well have been up to 85.
This simple traffic stop in Romania has uncovered an enormous crime spree in Somerset. Each individual burglary had been investigated at the time, but without success.
Forensic recovery in the forms of DNA and fingerprints. Normally, that would come back as a match to somebody that had previously been arrested for similar offences, but on this occasion, it didn't.
With a suspect in Romania, the lack of a forensic hit on the UK database finally makes sense.
Either the person hasn't been arrested before and we don't hold their fingerprints, or we've got somebody coming from another country that's been offending on our patch.
The phone call from Romanian police about the stolen goods has changed everything.
I was amazed. This doesn't happen very often. One minute we've been really struggling to try and find, what's going on, who's responsible for this, why aren't we getting matches to our fingerprints? And then all of a sudden, we get somebody stopped who's a foreign national in a car full of belongings that we think come from Bristol. It was great news, and it gave us a really positive line of inquiry to then pursue.
Next, Scott uses details from the Romanian police to find out more about the suspect.
The Romanian officers were able to pass us the full details of the driver. He told them that he'd been in the UK and the Bristol area, and that gave us then enough detail to start talking via our colleagues in the International Crime Coordination Centre and Europol. He had no police history in this country, and he had actually very little police history in Romania or other countries. Experience tells me I'd be expecting to see someone with a bit more of a criminal history rather than someone that it appears that has just sort of almost started out in their criminal offending.
The man's lack of a criminal history is a real blow for Scott. It means finding him will be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
What we then needed to do effectively was speak to all of our partner agencies. So that's Border Force, Europol and the International Crime Coordination Centre to try and establish where he was now travelling so that we could get a location on him and bring him back to the UK.
Then, the team gets a stroke of luck.
He ended up re-entering the UK but going to Scotland, which at that point meant that we didn't have to consider things like European arrest warrants. Our Scottish police were extremely helpful. We linked in with them and request that they make that arrest on our behalf, and we could go and collect him straight away. It was very exciting. Here we had someone that had admitted he'd been in the Bristol area. He was in the car with what looked like a massive amount of stolen property, and I was really itching to get him back into custody and see what he had to say for himself.
And it turns out he's got a lot to tell Scott and his team.
He was very forthcoming. He decided to tell us exactly what had happened. He'd become involved in a crime group, and what they'd actually done was they'd been able to secure employment as delivery drivers. It was via that means that they'd travelled around the area, and whilst they were delivering, they were also sadly scoping properties that they thought they could burgle. And that's how they were able to commit their offences.
News there were others in the burglary gang means this investigation is getting much bigger and more complicated.
He gave full details of his accomplices, so that was another breakthrough.
The men they're searching for are Romanian nationals: Constantin Dragomir and George Ioan.
At this point, we did have an international manhunt on our hands. There was a pressure to find the offenders and to stop it happening. And more than anything, desperately to try and get some of this property back to some of these victims.
Scott's next lead is linked to the gang's mode of operating, using their day jobs as delivery drivers to scope out and target the houses they raided.
We then started to speak to the delivery company they were working for to establish what vehicles they'd used. Did they have mobile phones they could provide us with? And the delivery company were quite rightly mortified and were able to work with us to give us the information that we needed.
And the names give them another link to the burglary crime wave.
Once we had the names from the driver, we could then start looking to compare our fingerprint and DNA evidence to the fingerprints and DNA held for these named individuals. The fantastic thing was that these fingerprints and DNA samples that we had no match for, all of a sudden we start getting matches to the named individuals. So we've now got forensic matches at a number of our scenes to these two offenders that are out in Europe. So the case is getting stronger all the time. We start then looking at their phone history because we've now got phone numbers from the delivery company. The delivery companies were also able to give us some tracking data to show us where their delivery vans have been, and it all starts to overlap and build a really strong picture to say, yeah, we've absolutely got the right two that we need to get.
Police have the evidence they need to bring in their suspects.
We wanted to quickly locate these individuals, and then we wanted to start the process of bringing them back to the UK.
Arrest warrants are issued, and it's not long before Ioan is in custody.
It was massively satisfying when the individual tried to leave Romania a couple of days later. He was stopped at the airport trying to leave the country. And before he disappeared, we had him in custody in Romania, which was, a high-five moment in the office.
As for Dragomir, his luck had already run out.
Again, we had some fortune in that he was currently serving a custodial sentence in a prison in Finland. He'd actually made it up to Finland, where he'd continued his offending again. And when we looked at what he'd been up to, it was exactly the same offences being committed whilst a delivery driver in Finland.
All three were charged with conspiracy to burgle multiple properties. Ioan received 6 years. Dragomir was handed 5 years on top of the sentence he was already serving in Finland. And the driver stopped by Romanian police was jailed for 3 years and 10 months. For Scott, it's a massive result. What started as a simple traffic stop led to him bringing down an international crime gang, targeting people all over Europe.
Stopping that scruffy red car as it entered Romania was such an important moment in this investigation. It was extremely rewarding to bring all three offenders to justice. And so I look back on it and yeah, it's probably, one of the most memorable cases I've had.
Back in Darlington, police are investigating reports of an intruder in a shared home and an assault that happened just a mile from the scene.
This offence has taken place in a well-lit street. Likelihood of him getting caught or seen committing such offence is quite high, and it goes to illustrate that he doesn't have the same kind of boundaries, and he really is a risk to the public. It's really important that we get hold of him as quickly as possible and get him off the street so that he can't create any further victims.
Now officers search the area close to where the assault took place. And thanks to their quick response and the victim's description, they soon get a sighting.
Officers have managed to find a male matching that description, and when they've approached him, he's attempted to make off from officers, raising their suspicions.
The chase is on, but not for long.
He's attempted to resist arrest and ended up being tasered.
And in custody, police discover just what a dangerous offender they've snared.
When officers arrest this man, they know that they've arrested him for one offence, but we can't say at this point whether or not the two incidents are linked. That is until we get into custody, when the custody sergeant asks for this man's name, and he gives the name Michael Gallagher. He also gives his address as the same address for the first incident.
When police attended reports of an intruder in a woman's room, her neighbouring flatmate, Michael Gallagher, was nowhere to be found. Since then, things have kept escalating. And now, officers suspect Gallagher is responsible for both crimes.
The onus is on us to prove as prosecutors that he is the person responsible for those offences. So we now need to start building a body of evidence to be able to prove that offence beyond all reasonable doubt.
They start by interviewing their suspect.
He had obviously been through the police process before and knows how we operate. He would sit in silence or no comment answers in interview, knowing that the onus is on us to be able to prove the offence, not wanting to give us any information that might hinder his case.
He might be refusing to comment, but it doesn't stop police efforts to build a case against him. They start by trawling CCTV footage of the area from the night of the attacks.
We were able to put together almost like a timeline of the suspect's movements. We obtained some CCTV footage that showed him leaving the house on the first incident with his bike, wearing the same clothing that he was then later seen on, committing the second offence. That footage also showed him cycling out onto a main road where he clearly spies the second victim and tracks her movements throughout the town until a point where he feels able to commit the assault upon her. Getting an offence captured on CCTV in the way that we did in this incident, it's a bit of a balancing act of emotions, really. On the one hand, it's harrowing stuff to watch somebody being targeted in such a way. But on the other side, we knew at that point when we got that CCTV footage capturing the offence that we probably were going to get a successful prosecution here.
They're confident the evidence ties Gallagher to the second assault. But is there enough to link him to the first?
The key for us in proving the first offence was when we obtained some CCTV footage from an address opposite the victim's home. It showed the suspect Michael Gallagher leaving the property only minutes after the attack took place. So seeing that footage of him creeping out of the address only a few minutes after to then go on and commit another really serious sexual offence, it kind of shows that he is probably the type of person who has committed that first offence. There's a reason why he's leaving the address very, very quickly afterwards. And he matches the description of what the victim gave us around her attacker having a beard. One of the key things for us was the fact that the victim's bedroom was locked at the time. The only point of entry was through the bathroom that was shared with Michael Gallagher's flat.
The quick response to a call about a mysterious intruder has helped police catch a dangerous criminal. Gallagher is charged with sexual assault and trespass with intent to commit a sexual offence.
Faced with the overwhelming body of evidence against him, he pled guilty when it came to court.
Gallagher was sentenced to 14 years in prison, with 2 years on extended licence.
What we think might be a simple job from the outset often snowballs into something much more serious or much more significant. In this case, what started as an alleged intruder ended with us dealing with a violent offender who had attacked one woman and attempted to attack another. It's a great feeling when you can link two cases together, when you know that you have a really strong case on one hand, but you might be struggling on the second case. But when you get those little key pieces of evidence that bring both of them together and you know that you're going to get a result on both cases, that's a really great feeling. This type of person is really a danger to society, and the people of Darlington don't want him around. It's also really important for the victims that they get an element of closure. Nothing can ever put right what Michael Gallagher's done to them. We can go some way towards making them feel safe for the future.
Next time on Big Little Crimes, an app on a confiscated mobile phone shocks the police.
I just literally shouted, "Just stop what you're doing, come and look at this."
Footage of an illegal drugs factory.
It was a live CCTV of a very significant large-scale cannabis farm.
And a normally chatty car dealer takes his right to remain silent to a whole new level.
His solicitor said, "Officer, he is suffering from PTSD and is unable to answer any of your questions."